We're live. We're rolling here, fellas. So we are here on another man. It's been a long time. I want to say a couple months since
Yeah.
April, I believe. Since I've done an episode. Had a little work done, not on myself. I'm still fat, but on the house. We had a whole addition done on the main floor. Then upstairs, we had a brand new bathroom put in. So Liam's been down in the basement for about 2 months, and all the podcast stuff's been kind of crammed off to the side, and it's been nuts. And so I wanted to jump the season off here with the off season kind of stuff. Now that we're back on, I want to talk to Lucas. We got Lucas on board here, and then his cohort, none other than the man, the builder. He's not doing my house. I should have had you do my house, guys. But Bill Kahle of Ringers. Not only are you with Ringers, but you work hand in hand with Lucas, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So you guys have I guess a connection here with someone that just made an Olympic team, and his name is Peyton Jacobson, which is pretty sweet. Now I remember watching him kind of growing up. He's been through the system, right, Lucas?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've talked about that quite a bit on here, as far as, not only just kind of specializing, but specializing early, and not only specializing, but getting away from the high school programs, right? And if you have certain goals that not every kid has, you have to jump off and you have to do your own thing. So with that being said, Peyton, when did Peyton start with your program? How old was he?
With combat, how old was he, Bill? He was young. With the HPG?
HPG, we didn't start till probably 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah, I mean, but I think Peyton was on the original first year of it, was he? Or
yeah,
no?
we came over a couple times for some camps, but we didn't like officially sign up until about 8th grade.
Okay.
And then we were locked in ever since. I just wanted to make it a part of like whatever curriculum I was doing. I wanted to make that part of the curriculum, because I liked what Lucas was doing.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because Bill, I know that you had something going on in the past, and it was at a school. What school was that you guys started this at? The Greco program itself.
Well, we were doing Greco kind of as much as we could. And then all the guys would always say things like, man, I wish I could do this. I wish I could only do Greco. I wish I could not do freestyle anymore. I hear it all the time. And then one parent, Henry Amborn's parents, they said, hey, we could go to Burlington Catholic Central, and they would let you go to, have the kids go to school there. They'd be lenient with traveling. And so I'm like, all right, let's try this. And we, developed that, and we were traveling. I made Lucas. I made it so that Lucas and I were working together on like how we were going to form this. Talking to Matt Linland, like, hey, what do you think I should be doing here? And so I mean, I might have been the head of that, but I was really taking advice from everyone, because it was one of the first things to kind of to go down. But then, unfortunately, the pandemic happened, and there was a few high-level people that were, that were planning on going, and then the pandemic happened. I mean, we were in Moldova when I got a call from Peyton's dad saying, hey, President Trump said he's closing down. It's like May 13th. He's like, President Trump's closing the country down. You're going to get back soon. So it's 3 a.m. and I'm scrambling to get change tickets. And here I'm in the airport, and only airport we could fly into was Istanbul or whatever. And so, it was. So after that, though, that portion of the program with that school kind of faded, just because they weren't they weren't really prepared for a pandemic, nor was many other people. But then we just did it through the club. Those guys kind of homeschooled. Okay. And then Peyton's senior year, it was kind of a homeschool thing. Same with my son Kale, and then they just trained through Ringers and with Lucas. We just kind of we would always find different places. Matt Lynn would let us come to training camps with the seniors while these kids are like, they're kids,
Yeah. So, but Lucas, you were doing something already before that. This was just something to be able to try and branch off, right? To be able to have availability elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing the Greco thing on Blue River, and then
Yep.
Bill had reached out. I didn't know who Bill was, I'll be honest with you. That I mean, I think I just met him, you know, to see him at tournaments, but didn't really know him that good like we do at now. And he was always reaching out, being real proactive to get the guys together. And then we were doing our thing, and then he's like, "Hey, we might do this toppers." It was ended up being toppers, right? And we actually had a few guys that are interested in even going over there from our area that were part of our club, saying, "Well, we might want to." A lot of the guys didn't want to do homeschooling. A lot of the guys didn't want to do that. They wanted to go like brick and mortar. So that was kind of the nice thing with the toppers, whatever that place was called. Mm-hmm. And anyways, yeah. So that would have been, but it was very long. I mean, it was pretty much like we started, and then Bill called up, and then we kind of, you know, and he did his thing. It was pretty like within a couple of years of each other. It wasn't like it was very far apart.
Was Peyton a part of that system at all over by you, Bill, or was he strictly over by Lucas?
No, Peyton was always with me.
Yeah,
because he lives on this side of the state, so like he was always with me.
Okay, and Elkhorn is high school, right?
Yeah, his Elkhorn was high school, and so then he was with me at this school, and then and we were just trying to figure out a way, you know, to do Greco full time and not do folk style was interesting because before it was always, you know, you did it in spring, you had a few practices a week, but now we had to adjust like a whole curriculum to be full time, you know, and to have your core drills and not just, you get to a point where you're not learning a ton of new moves anymore. You're just, you're developing like a system. And so I felt like I was pretty well in line with what Lucas was doing. And I liked what Lucas was doing. I mean, and I feel like technically he brought my level up, you know, you know, because I would ask him things. We would talk about things. We would go on overseas trips. So like, you know, that kind of push was leveling up our coaching as well.
Well, what happened there is like,
go ahead.
The HPG thing was like the once a month, like HPG was like a once a month training, like the public coming and train with us. That started off first. And like I think Peyton was around that, was a part of that first year of it, but it was only like 13. Well, it was 12 guys and one extra guy back then was Drexler's. We had all three Drexler boys there. And that extra Drexler boy was I think Gavin, the youngest one, and being the biggest one. And Peyton was Peyton was tiny. I mean, shit, you know, what do you weigh back then? Like 49 kilos. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in Peyton, you know, I remember vividly that we were at World Team Trials, and that's when cadets were in, this one was cadets, not U17, but anyways, it was in Akron. And Peyton was in the semis against the twin brother of the guy Kahle Anderson was in the semis with, like, literally like across each mat. And I think Peyton was willing to lead and something went awry. And then Kahle took care of his guy and went to maybe it was the brother he's seen. Anyway, I don't know, something like that. Yeah. They're both California kids. And anyways, Kahle ended up getting the spot. You know, I was like, holy crap, these guys are gonna meet in the finals. You know, it was a good problem to have. I think we did that. And then I think the very next year, Bill started a Toppers full-time program and pulled him out of high school. I remember being at high school state wrestling, watching Peyton at maybe 106.
Wow.
With 13.
113.
Wow.
And he was doing well. Like something happened. He lost. And then he got to the fifth place match, the third place match or something. Yeah. And he got to overtime, had the win in hand, and something went awry. Like, I kind of remember it haphazardly, but it was like a tough loss. And he had it, I thought, in a bag. Then it was like, man, then next year he went full-time Greco. And Bill started the Top Wrestling program.
So it's interesting to see the progression that he made, because it wasn't an easy climb for him when he first started out, right? Because the new schedule, having to adjust to what he was doing because he wasn't used to full-time Greco, but then watching as he was actually not even peaking yet. And as he got older and older, it was watching him just beating these guys that he was constantly like kind of, I wouldn't say struggling with, but he was having a hard time with. And then some of those guys went away and new guys came back in, and he seemed to excel with each new guy that he ran into, and you saw him getting better and better. Were you guys to a certain point when you were coaching him where you kind of wondered, well, you know, is this going to happen? Did you guys ever have any questions? Did the parents say, is this worth it? How was that road for him that you guys went through as far as coaches? Was it a simple one for him? How did that go?
Well, I can start first. When we first were going full time, I think our first trip was in Sweden, and Luke and I were together on that one. And he wrestled his first senior tournament, and he was like 16, and he ended up taking second. And it wasn't a big senior tournament, but it was a senior level, and he won his first little handful of money, and so he was like, it clicked. He's like, oh, I like this way more. And it's not like you're getting rich on this at all.
No, right. No. But still, that's
but he once he stopped doing folk style, he just kept continually going up. Like continually. He continually going up. And then that following year, he won his first stop sign at the US Open when it was in Nebraska, right during the pandemic. I have pictures with me coaching with a mask. He won his first stop sign, and he kept excelling. The only time he plateaued in this time was his sophomore year, and it was because his school schedule was pretty heavy, and he wasn't able to go overseas. There was a real missing component in his training, where this year it was much different, between all his coaches, all of us talking to him, setting up his schedule, and, encouraging his overseas trips. He set himself up a good schedule to be overseas quite a bit, and
he's killing it.
And that set him, I believe that set him apart in how he performed at the Olympic trials.
So these guys had to train because Lucas, we talk about it. Technique is important, and going through the regimen of getting things right, especially on an international level. And you talk about how different things are. What does, and Bill, you can attest to this too, what does a workout look like for someone like that, as far as not only the wrestling workout, but what does he do for workout? Like, going in a weight room, does he do any of that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
For him, there's, he had a hip issue when he was probably about 8, where he was, his socket in his hip deteriorated. And then over the next year, it finally started growing back. So he's always constantly doing stretching and taking care of his body religiously. So he's stretching all the time. He gets himself a pre-warm up and stretches himself out beforehand. But he's huge on his strength training, and he still works with this Corey Engelberg out of he trained some Vikings football players, and was out of the Lake Geneva area for a while. He still uses him as a source for his whatever his training is. So he's very religious with his strength training, which is why when he jumped up 10 kilos, he didn't jump up 10 kilos. He didn't really, he was walking around at 87.
He didn't cut weight for a while.
He just didn't cut weight. Yeah. But he was big. Strong enough, he was strong enough to compete with some of our strongest Americans, really strong individuals. And he was right there. He was right in the fight with everyone. Dude, so
I mean, just looking at the size of him, and that's why I asked, because it seemed like because it's a different style. It's a whole different world. Like you're saying, Lucas, the amount of energy that you're putting in one part of the body is completely different from Greco to freestyle, So
yeah, I would say, like, you go back in that thing as we asked, and Bill was talking about his training. It was like, I would think, I mean, all athletes train to be bigger, faster, stronger. But I think the biggest between a huge difference, I hate to say the biggest, but a big difference between international training. Let's talk about, like, I'll give you 2 examples. So just in Greco Roman wrestling compared to freestyle and folk style wrestling, that training, like when you go to a freestyle folk style practice in the United States, or even Greco Roman practice in the United States, it's a lot of wrestling. It's just wrestling and wrestling around. I mean, they're doing some gymnastics and they're trying to act the part. But when you're doing real training, I would say over 50. I mean, just a tad bit over 50% of your training is really. I mean, you're talking strength training and power training. You're taking like Bill touched on with Peyton was keeping your body healthy. And so like we're talking a lot of stuff we're doing in training. If we have an hour and a half, 2 hour session, half of that session is dedicated to body health. flexibility, recovery work, pre-maintenance work, and in strength and all that stuff. Then off the mat is strength training. I mean, Greco-Roman wrestling, I'm just being factual. You're like, for 6 minutes, you're in contact. You're in contact. It's like being an NFL lineman for 6 minutes straight, nonstop. Think about that. I mean, so in folk style and freestyle, there's a lot of time you're not touching anybody. There's a lot of time on the clock. Think about this. The instant there's no contact in Greco, they stop the clock. So I mean, if you go out of bounds, stop the clock. If they put you in part, they stop the clock. In freestyle, you can dance around third away.
Yep.
Clock's running. You do that. Yep. You do that in Greco. That's caution 2, fleeing the hold. So maybe caution 1 now. They change the rule every freaking 10 days, it seems like. But with that said, is the Greco-Roman training, a lot of the training isn't really wrestling per se. It is to make yourself a much better athlete to be able to wrestle Greco-Roman wrestling. Now, you go international, compound that, multiply that by 10 or 20 times. In the United States, I've been around enough RTCs and big camps, and I will say 0 of them times do they train to the level that you need to train at to be productive at an international level as a better athlete. Now, a lot of times they're camps, so you're there for 3, 4, 5 days. It's whatever. But I've never been to a place where I thought it was a good international training exposure for freestyle or Greco. They're just wrestling. So with Greco-Roman training, you look at Peyton, he goes from 49 kilos, which is 99, 100 pounds, to 87 kilos, a mixed Olympic team. And if you, like Bill said, the line goes like this. It goes on a nice steady curvature up. Yeah. And so, a lot of his training, I would say a huge part of his training is about his body. I mean, just we're not talking about wrestling moves or any wrestling. We're talking about his body. And I think, I mean, what separates Peyton Jacobson out from the other guys right now wrestling, it's not some fancy technique or some secret moves. It's the dedication to his body and make himself the best Greco-Roman athlete before he gets on the mat, just before he goes in a book on technique. So that's the hugest difference when it comes to, like, well, guys, when you ask a question like, okay, what are we doing in Greco that's different than freestyle and folk style? Then what are you doing different at the international level? Is that they're just much better athletes because they're constantly building their bodies. They're constantly taking care of their bodies. Bill can attest me Moldova. I mean, to Bill, I think Bill, was it Moldova you went to, or I don't know, you went to, like, man, they spent a lot of time doing all this pre-training, pre-practice, bad practice, but, warm-up, taking care of the bodies.
Well, in stretching, especially now with Liam talking about hips. I had hip flexor issues. Playing soccer and stuff like that. So, he's starting to get a little strain and stress on him too. And, I told him a lot of times you need to go off, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes to not stretch doing butterfly stretches, but specific stretches that you have to do on your own because you're talking about body health and just making sure that you got to be, I call it loose, juiced, and ready to goose, just ready to go. Because if you're not loosened up, you're going to hurt something. So with that being said, though, too, you're talking about body health with nutrition, right? So these guys are making sure that their body's not only just taken care of and stretched, you're talking about fueling it properly, because without fueling it properly, you're also doing damage, So
I just want to jump in and quick at that.
Yeah.
Like, go look at the average. I don't care what country. I don't care if it's freestyle Greco. I don't care if it's men or female. It doesn't matter. Look at the average body type of the foreigner compared to an American.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
American carries an enormous amount of useless muscle a lot of times, or like more of a bodybuilder style. Now, the guys are more lean built, kind of leaned out, long and lanky, but real athletic, like efficient athletes do the best. I know Peyton is stature-wise isn't 30 feet tall, but he's also not a bodybuilder. He is hit when you grab. Peyton is like, every ounce of his body is 100% functional, know? And so if you look at that foreigner, they're 100% functional. An American, not every American, we see a lot of American athletes, they go out there and they just have a different body style. And it's our daily diet. I think it's our training, a lot of it, but I think it's our daily diet and our lifestyle.
I think we're surrounded by fat, by sugar, all that stuff. And just growing up as kids before these guys start out, it's not like they're taught, anything healthy about nutrition. So you almost have to start over once they get to a certain point.
Well, here let's go back on that. What Peyton's name, which is Bill mentioned on the trajectory deal.
Yeah.
So Peyton is wrestling, folk style, freestyle wrestling. They have been relatively, I mean, success that we're measuring back in those days at a local success is doing just fine. Yeah, but he's wrestling 99 or not 99. He's wrestling 45 kilos. He's wrestling 106 in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, but he's not. But again, he's not 30 feet tall, and he's not gaunt. He's just horrible, right? But he's also not thinking about growing into it. He's also not thinking of growing into a 190-pound mass of muscle that can do backflips. His brain is focused on being the local yokel hero, wearing a leather jacket for his high school at 103 or 113 or whatever it was. Whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yep.
But if you grow up in Hungary or any other country in the world, they're like, what are you going to wrestle when you're 28 years old? And then talk to me then. Their whole life is geared towards getting to their adult weight class as fast as humanly possible. They're not talking about U15s or U17s. They don't even send kids to step. They didn't want to piss away the money on them. Nobody cares about it. They're little children. So look at our Americans. Their whole life is cutting weight.
Yeah, correct.
Their whole life is starvation, malnutrition.
Yep.
Look at each
Well, that's so it's. Yeah, you talk about that, especially at the youth level with the kids, you know, because their parents want them to win championships and they got to win this national and they got to win that national. And even at the level of folk style and freestyle that it's at, you know, they're still preaching, you know, do less, just practice more, do less competition. Like you're saying.
I don't think it really style matter. I think it's more just a mentality towards the American mentality.
Right.
Sports in general, period.
Correct. And then once they spring off and the kids decide they don't want to do it anymore, then the parents are, you know, obviously left in the dust. But with kids today and to be able, as far as athleticism, when you're talking about Peyton Jacobson being at 106, did he jump like a huge level all of a sudden? Was it one summer he went like the 150? How was his progression in weight gain?
He kept slowly. He kept slowly progressing.
45, 60, 63. I mean, really, but Brad's kind of right. A lot of times dudes jump like 30 kilos.
Yeah.
But he did it. He literally went like weight class to weight class.
In a decent progression.
Just kept jumping a weight class. And when he was younger, he did cut weight. But then as he got older, I mean, he was still cutting weight. Don't get me wrong. He was still cutting weight.
Sure.
But you know, finally, like this last jump, you know, I mean, his best friend is at 77 kilos, you know, and he'd have to, you know, blaze through Benji to get there. And I think for him, he would have liked to see, you know, Benji told a story at his banquet. He said probably about 2 weeks before the trials, Peyton calls him at 8:00 on a Saturday and is like, hey, let's go run hills. And he's like, well, it's raining right now. He's like, I don't care. I'm coming over. And he comes, wakes up Benji. They go run hills together. And he's like, they did about 6 of them. And they got to the top. And he's like, isn't it going to be awesome? Both of us are going to be Olympians. You know what I mean? So in Peyton's mind, it was better for him to go up and, you know, take a tougher route. But sometimes, you know, mentally, when you do stuff like that, and he's got a good spiritual life, mentally, when you go take a challenge, you know, it kind of puts you up on another level sometimes. And and I think that's what it did for Peyton. And it was the first time I can remember that he never had to cut weight, you know.
And I mean, that's awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, every athlete goes through that. You gotta make weight. You gotta make weight.
Right.
But but I think, you know, when you take it, like when you go from the high school setting of athletic. So just a quick little jump off here, not jump off, but like here, let's say high school wrestling was folk style. I'm sorry, freestyle and Greco. I still wouldn't be involved. I mean, I would have athletes probably doing it, but I would still say, no, you're out. You're out. You know, I think folk style athletes should spend a year or two in high school, be done with it. It depends what kind of level they're at. I just think it's a temporary environment. We could talk about some stuff about high school wrestling here too. That's of some significance lately. But with that said, and to prove my point, is that even if it was Greco Roman wrestling, we wouldn't want the kids in high school wrestling, because the mentality towards cutting weight and winning right now isn't the world level of training and progression. So as soon as we take Peyton Jacobson and other like athletes out of just that system, the style is one. is to sit there and say, okay, now what we're going to do with you is we're going to get you to where we think you're going to be at 24, 25, your Olympic weight class, and first, Bill's probably on Bill. I was thinking like 63, 67, 70, 70, he just kept on eating Pop-Tarts and growing. I mean, that kid, but when he's growing, but when what he did though is he went and hired somebody. Hey, Bill's right. Me and Bill had this thing called 100% list. It's a list of check boxes. And one of mine is like, he went and hired a professional to teach him or guide him in lifting. He used to go in there and do bench press every day. He has, his diet plan, stuff like that, nutritional deal. He's got, obviously his coaching and training internationally and playing in competition. And then he came to Bill, and Bill, you can start about this real quick, but his spiritual part, he came to Bill about. He came to Bill and he was like, hey, what do I got to be doing next? Like, a year or two ago, did he come to you, Bill, and say, hey, there's something, I got to be doing something else, something like that? Or
he actually came upon it kind of organically, but then he was able to share with me some of his spiritual life. And, and we've talked about this too. Like, that's a factor in many high level athletes, whether you believe in a higher power, God, whatever it is. Many athletes have, a spiritual life to them, because once you get up, it's kind of like a pyramid. You're with this big group of guys, and now you have to do all this extra stuff to get higher up the ladder. And now as you're getting higher and higher, you have no one to practice with. You have, like, you're going overseas by yourself because not everyone wants to do what you're doing at this point. So sometimes the only person you have is God, I mean, in a spiritual sense, some of these kids, you have no one else. So for Peyton, he was like, man, am I gifted? I'm able to go overseas. I'm winning these tournaments. And he's like, I just think there's something more. And I believe that really helped him mentally with just some of the daily grind of stuff. I mean, you're by yourself in a foreign country. Your family's here. You're in a different time zone. It's not like you can call all the time either, so.
It's interesting you bring up that fact. Now, I'm not overly religious. I grew up around, Irish Catholic. So my parents I had plenty of it. I had CCD, all that stuff. So I'm not against it. Right. So I get it. I don't think that it's necessarily, something to be against, religion. I don't think it's, unless you're against, people being alive, then that's a problem. But as far as just religion, how does a kid who doesn't gravitate towards that, and you're talking about how it helped him kind of up a level, you say higher power, does it have to be God they believe in? Like what is a kid as far as just kind of belief system other than believing in themselves? Well, what do they gravitate towards on?
Well, that's I think it's an easy, I have an easy answer, but I think the answer is you have to have something or someone. And I'm not talking about a family member. It can't be a buddy or a girlfriend or a wife. It's going to have to be something like a sports psychologist or Bill and I actually have an athlete going to be reaching out to Bill quick about this as soon as we have a hypnotherapist. I can't think of her name right now. What's her name?
Karen Bird.
Yeah. And so you have some, and I remember back when I was in high school, dudes were listening to cassette tapes and Walkmans back in our day before matches. Back then they were doing that. And so you have to have something, because the number one problem I would say this, when you're coaching athletes, getting to 15 to 16 isn't very difficult. When you start getting 18, 19, it gets a little tougher. 20, 23, as you get older, it gets tougher because in America, there's so much stimulus, there's so much distraction, and the way our lights are. And so like like Bill said, when you get to a certain level, and now you're like we talk about worlds, there's levels, but then there comes a time you're in a different dimension. You're in a different world. Your whole world it's just not even the same level. And it's not even levels anymore. And so when you get to that part where you're in a different world, and the languages are different, your life is different, like the seasons are different, everything is different about your life. You need to have something, because there's only going to be a handful of people in the country, much less world, that are in your world with you. And a lot of times you can't use those people because they're kind of, beat you at the tournament just as well. Right. Or they're in the same boat you are. So you need to have a spiritual life, or you don't have a spiritual life. You're going to have some type of, mental person. I don't know.
An anchor, some type of anchor in your life. You know what I mean?
You got to have something.
Yeah.
You ain't going to make it. You will not make it. You will not, guaranteed not to make it. You will not make it. Not at a high level. I mean, you will make it like locally. I'm not talking U.S. Open, national stuff, NCAA stuff. Yeah, that's local stuff. You'll do that. Even the NCAA Division I guys, I bet you survey the top 10 of those dudes. They're probably doing something at a very intimate, personal level. Mentally,
you see it. You see it daily, weekly, tournamentally.
Yeah.
Every time when they win, I mean, you hear it. So it's not a knock. It's not a diss on anybody. I just find it that some kids don't believe in certain things, but they still have faith in themselves enough to get something done. So I kind of wonder, and to not make fun of it, it's like, is it a stuffed animal if they don't want to believe in God or Allah or whatever it is they want to believe in?
Well, I think
something to go to.
Just to keep their sanity, they got to have some type of
right.
And I
mean, maybe it's just like a sports psychologist person. They got to have somebody to talk to.
Well, even add, I mean, it's interesting. You know, like when we're talking about this, Peyton is now at that like top 10 in the world level, you know?
Yes.
So when we talk about like kids around here, like, hey, what can we do about this kid? It's hard for him to relate with that, what the mental mind frame is going on with them. When you see other guys from other countries at that top 10-ish, those guys, I mean, many of them, it might be Muslims or they might be Orthodox Russian, you know what I mean? Like, so they have something. They all do. It's very rare that anecdotally we've went through this, like me, Lucas, and Lindland, and even others, and we'll talk about it, that's a factor. It's
look at the best wrestlers and then look at the countries. So look at Germany, France, Sweden. Then you look at Russia, Iran, Turkey, Sweden, Serbia, Hungary. So you got the countries that are doing really good. You got the country that I just talked, the first set of countries that ain't doing so hot in anything. I mean, they're winning here and there. Yeah. But then you got the countries that are just very solid traditionally and through all three styles. Those countries are a lot more faith-based countries. I mean, no matter how you cut it. Now, not that maybe all the athletes are, but you got to have something, because I can't express, and I'm not an obviously, none of us are in that level but we're in that level of life because of the athletes. Yeah. And you're trying to figure out every nook and cranny. So if you have this 100% checklist, everybody lifts weights, everybody eats right, everybody wrestles in the wrestling mat, there's a sleeping pattern. We talk about sleep pattern too. But you're checking them all off. It's like, okay, what's the one thing that I'm missing? And that's mental health. Yeah. And you got mindset, you get the mindset guys from the United States, but that's true. And those guys are big faith-based guys. Yeah. So I'm not saying faith, you have to go to a church, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying mentally, you're going to have to have a strong mental program. And it has to be a exercise program.
And that's how I'm asking, is just for, especially from a kid that may not believe in something, what is that thing that they go to? Right. Yeah,
you're going to have to have something. You got to do some mental training, because it's too easy. John Smith has this thing. I think John Smith said it. He said a while back, it's something he quoted out. He's like, wrestlers are really good at doing the hard things, hard, like, like say climbing rope. They'll climb rope and lift weights and run, but they're really bad at doing the easy things hard. Like, like getting their grades up, not going drinking, just sleeping in, better sleep patterns, eating healthy, being good people. Wrestlers are really bad at doing the easy things good, or hard. Yeah. And so he was a really good statement out there. He's right. Wrestlers, you say, hey, we're going to go drill for an hour. Like, oh man, can we just alive? You hear that. Just at that simplest example there, wrestlers are really good at digging holes. They're really bad at manicuring the lawn, so it's an important thing that athletes, as they're going through, and they're sitting there saying, well, why did this athlete make it and that athlete not? Why'd they quit? Yeah. And we could talk about all that forever, but it's forever. Mental. It's a mental thing. It's definitely a mental thing.
And one thing that Peyton was always really disciplined with was that he stayed on course. Like we set up a plan for him. We all work together, and we're like, okay, this is what you're gonna do. You're going to travel here. You're going to try and travel this many times. You're going to live all this. And we found that there's athletes that are like, I don't think I'm going to go overseas this time. I think I'm going to go do this. And you're like, mother, just listen.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah.
And Peyton always did. He's like, what should I be doing now? Okay. Focus more on your bottom game. Hey, when you're over there in Croatia, see if you can work with Momir a little more. Okay. There's just like
capitalize on the situation.
He just followed plans. Parents can F that up too, where they'll be like, you know what, you probably shouldn't go over there. We're spending all this money, and you're like, well, don't tell me that you don't know why they're not an Olympic champ. We're doing the path. We're laying it out. We're making it as cheap as we can. We have full-time jobs. We're not making money on this.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm a carpenter. Come on. And so, we want to see these kids succeed. And I don't know if it's our ego that wants to see it or not, but Peyton stayed on a path and didn't go his own way, even with his strength training and his diet. He stays to a plan.
Well,
for those
that real quick. I mean, I'll say this: you see athletes, right, at 10, 12 years old, they do whatever you say because they're everything's big to them.
Yeah,
15, 16, they're pretty good. They get a driver's license. You lose some athletes. Now they think they got to get a job and have a cool car, truck, whatever. Then 18, 19, to get down to high school, they're like, oh, I'm done competing because now I'm going to become a 30-year-old adult. I'm 18 years old. And then, then they're lost. I mean, even guys that go to college, I mean, look at all these guys that go to college, just say this folks out. And then you get out of college, like, I'm done wrestling. I was like, done wrestling, you're 23 years old, man. What can you do for the next 8 years? What are you doing? The best years you have for let a career between the age of 22 and 32, and you're just quitting now. It's like, so you see that. So when athletes start thinking for themselves and then listening only to themselves and making their own decisions, that's the start of their end of their career. 100% of the athletes that I know, that I'm not even associated with, you go watch their career. As soon as they're like, well, I'm going to do this and that, I'm going to do. Okay, they might have, the successful ones are saying that, but they also have got other people coaching them and guiding them to flip the left. But the ones like, I'm doing it on my own, I know my own body, blah, 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 blah. 100% of them have all faded off into the sunset. As soon as an athlete, I don't care if he's 100 years old, starts relying on themselves and their own thoughts and ideas, they start running into problems. They need, even if they're right, though. I mean, let's say the athlete comes to you and says, the best plan. The guy like Peyton, like a huge reason why he had so much success. Bill writes the plan up. He calls me. We all talked to Andy Bisick. We're all talking what's shaking. And then even if we don't agree on something 100%, we talk to Peyton. We let's mold it into this. Okay, yes, we figured it all out together. And so it's like, okay, and then Peyton's got to say yes. He's a man. He's got to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to do this. But Peyton stays coachable. He doesn't get obnoxious, arrogant, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like, whatever. He listens. He calls. He's calling up now about stuff. It's like the littlest things, which that's the secret, though. Keeping those athletes coachable. And Peyton stays in that zone of a coachable, growing athlete and following the plan. Even if he doesn't agree with the plan, he'll talk. He's not, Mimi mouth. He'll talk. He's very professional. And we'll all figure out, and Bill, we're going to figure it all out. And it's like, lots of times, like, well, what did Bill say? He's like, well, yeah, I think Bill's right. He's like, okay, I'll do this, I'll do that. But with that said, the reason why Peyton's at where he's at, he's never wavered from day one. When he made the choice from leaving the folk style scene, high school scene to go to Greco, there was probably a little thought process, a little like, because it's like, man, you can't come back. I mean, you could go back, but nobody wants to do that. You know? Right. But once he got in, you know what he was? First of all, Peyton is highly like great. Bill, right? He's like really good in grades, right? He's like straight A's, right, Bill?
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, so he's a very smart, intelligent, deductive, reasoning skilled kind of person. So he, even from like anything from day one till now, he follows the plan written out, and he has a plan. He's not just winging it on Monday. His life, if you take his life, there are 0 negative hours. His sleep pattern, eating pattern, lifting pattern, mat training time, tours overseas, his planned off time, the planned time they have breaks. He doesn't have a personal relationship. There's that right now, which is a huge one, and people get that's like done that too much, but there's no personal relationship.
Free time,
of course. He
gets school time on the toilet. He's going to take a dump eventually. Give a kid a break.
Negative hours in his life. Now we have other athletes that are really amazing, but the negative hours. So if there's a 0 and then there's a +10 and a +9 10, Peyton's at plus 10 because every hour is positive. There's not one negative hour in his life. We have our athletes that are +5, -3, +6, -7. We have athletes. We all have those athletes. And then those are the athletes that are struggling.
So do you see a change ever since, like with the progression of Peyton, do you see a change in the mentality? And I'll ask you, Bill, first, because you see a lot of these kids that are younger, you have a requirement, Lucas. By the time they get to you, they have to have certain requirements. Bill, you still kind of work with ringers a little bit, so you get to see some younger kids coming up. Do you see a change now with a little bit of Peyton Jacobson success? Are their parents asking more about this program, this type of situation, to be able to get their kids into it?
Well, there's a couple that are interested for sure.
Yeah, that's a jump to me.
Yeah, there's a couple that are interested. They were, I feel like they were on the fence, but now they're like, all right. I mean, I brought one of them over with me to Alaska, who we'd like to be with Lucas a little more, and it worked good because Peyton was along on the trip to Alaska. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah. So it worked in that fashion. And, but we don't usually limit it. We don't limit it to people in the state. I mean, we're kind of searching all the time, all over for these kids.
Oh yeah. Lucas is proof of that. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you, and I'll say this, and I keep saying this, and it makes obviously no sense, but the more success you have, I think the secret is success at a certain position or level or world. The more success you have, it's almost a negative, because what ends up happening is back in the day, I'll just run it down, when we had lots and lots and lots of athletes in clubs, just in general, wrestling, folk style, and freestyle, Greco, having all a good time. And the biggest requirement was to qualify for state, win a high school state championship, make a Fargo team, come up. We did all that kind of stuff, national champions. Everybody could see it, they could taste it, could smell it. It was localized. They really could grasp it. Yeah. But as soon as we said we're taking all these posters down, we took down all of our state champion posters, and we said we're only going to put up posters of world team members, or Pan American medals, or world medals, and obviously Olympic stuff. And so we did that, and people were like, "What? What?" People that graduated and hadn't been in the club for years were mad. And so we're really mad. We're like, well, local athletes and stuff.
But it fits the goals of the club.
Yeah, and so it was just things change over time. You got to up the ante. So then then we had some world team members. Well, people are like, I can see that. So that helped get athletes and some more Fargo stuff. But then as soon as we started getting a world medal, that didn't help anything. Now Peyton went to an Olympic team. There are more people talking about it. But as soon as you say, okay, this is what we need to do, they're like, whoa, okay, well, man, I don't want to do that.
Well, because it doesn't fit the normal narrative, even though all the things around them, then they see the proof. It doesn't fit the normal narrative, and they're like, I
think it's very relatable at the high school level. You see these teams like, I want to be team state champions. I want to be high school state champions, like individual. And like, what do I got to do, coach? Like, well, so-and-so trains 4 to 5 days a week in high school here, and he goes to a club year round, and he goes to Fargo, and he does all these trips and goes to Super Day too. Oh, well, I still want to play baseball and football, and I still want to hang out with my buddies. Yeah. Can I just stay after practice for 15 minutes and do like that? So they still want, me and Bill talk about this in our personal life. They want the $8,000 job for $2,000.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they want. It's the same clientele basis. Bill's like, I want a beautiful deck for 20 grand. Guy Bill goes, well, it's $20,000. And the guy goes, well, I have 10,000. Bill's like, well, yeah, we can build you a $10,000 deck, but we can't build you a $20,000
half of that.
Yeah. And so in both worlds, you have the client base, and Bill's world, it's like their brain is still seeing that $20,000 deck at $10,000. Bill's like, that's going to happen. And in the wrestling world, they're still seeing the state championship, playing practice 3 days a week, no matter what we tell them it has to be done. And that's what's happening here with the Peyton Jacobson thing. There's more of people talking about it, but you would think with the success that we've had, just from the athletes within what we're doing, both sides, there would be people beating down the door, like, oh my God, this is what we have to do. But they're like, man, my coach told me, blah, blah, blah. It's a whole nother story, but a whole nother venue of conversation. But no, it's not filling this. It's not filling the club with athletes wanting to become a Greco Roman full-time international wrestlers. Not at all.
Well, I'm not looking at it as an aspect of like, well, now you can get 50 guys in the room, not that kind of thing. It really is just about the, kind of I don't know, a spike in viewership, I guess.
Well, I would say that's happening, but Bill's right though. It's taking the people on the fence, and they're all in then. Them people, but I think we're gonna get those people probably no matter what.
Yeah, so and it's made it tangible. It's made it real tangible.
Yes, it is.
For some of these kids now, they're like, oh my gosh, Peyton coached me when we were doing the full-time Greco thing when they were in high school.
It's
during we were doing these Greco practices all year round, and little guys like Mike DeLayton, who's gonna be an up and comer in the Greco scene. He was in there in like 4th grade. Peyton was coaching him. So some of these kids, it's really tangible. Like, oh my gosh, I seen what he did. He left early, or some of these kids who were in folk style, they were in the youth practice, and off on the side would be Peyton and Kahle during the folk style season doing Greco. We're over there doing this,
awesome.
And they always used to look and be like, "What are they doing?" And some of the coaches, like Oli, actually contacted me. He's like, it worked. He's like, it worked, man. And that was the first thing that I said to Benji after the seconds turned 0 and Peyton's finals match was like, it fucking worked. I'm like, it fucking worked, because it worked, this plan that we talked about, anecdotally, we've seen it overseas. We've seen these kids pulled from their homes and brought into a gym and living away from their parents because they wanted a better life. And they just slept wrestling and Greco. And we're like, how are we going to compete with that? Like, how are we going to compete with that? By doing it 4 months of the year? Like, it's a joke. What? And so this was the only way. And we're like, man, we've climbed a step. We're not there, but we're climbing a step.
And I think we're getting away from that fact. And Lucas, you and I have talked about it a lot before, that it really isn't just Greco-Roman that needs people to specialize. It's every sport now. It's just the way that sports are. It's the way that sports are.
I'm not the one drawing up the rules here. I'm not the one making this work. It's just the way the rules are. Yeah. I mean, there's people that have a lot more money than us making these things happen. I mean, look at baseball, for God's sake.
I mean, I don't go to be a carpenter I want to be the best carpenter, but I'm going to do plumbing 3 days a week, and I'm going to do electrical 1 day a week, and then carpentry I'll go in there, but I still want to be the best carpenter. I want to. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
No, well, it's the same thing in my trade. Nobody's building transmissions and painting cars.
No. Well, then you break it down to football. Football, it's like that. As my nephew was just in town. They're from LA. He's a quarterback. He doesn't go and then go ahead and run routes later on during the game. He goes to quarterback camps. He plays as a quarterback. He only focuses on the quarterback position. He only cares about what the quarterback does. He doesn't care about what the outside linebacker does, except keep a guy out of his face, whatever position is.
It's just evolution. It's just,
correct.
Here, I'll give you an example. And Bill, me and Bill talked to us a lot about why we think our trades are a really powerful, useful thing for the position we're at in Greco Roman wrestling. And one of them is this, and I talk about this in Greco, is the number one thing hurting Greco Roman wrestling in the United States. It's not folk style high school wrestling, it's not freestyle, it's not coaches. I mean, those things are all not helping us because of those things. But the number one thing hurting us is Greco-Roman people in Greco-Roman, or that were in Greco-Roman, and they're telling people you can do these things. They're stuck. We have people that were very successful, or coaches or athletes or people in Greco, and they're not doing it intentionally. They really believe these things they're saying. But it's the same people I talk to in my daytime trade to come to the shop and say, hey, I used to build transmissions in 1985, in 1995, in 2005. I used to build transmissions when there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 speed transmissions before they had computers. I used to build transmissions before they had computers. As soon as they got computers, I said, I ain't doing that shit no more. And they didn't. I go through this every single week. So they come into the shop and I sit there and say, yeah, you have this, blah, blah, blah. How much? I go with $6,000 to $8,000. Depends what you want to do. Maybe, is a high performance, but I mean, $20,000 to $30,000. I don't know. What do you want to do with this thing? And they're like, oh my God. He goes, back when I built transmissions, they were $500. Bullshit. He gets pissed and leaves. This is the same thing at Greco-Roman. We have people that are stuck in the back in 1985 education, 1995, 2000, 2015 education. And they're like, well, one time my buddy built this transmission and put it in the car and it worked great. Well, one time that worked great. And the same thing at Greco-Roman. Well, one time we had a guy did high school, college, and all this. And it happened one time. It happened maybe 5 times out of 100 fucking years.
Called an anomaly.
So in the real world, what we have to do, we all do, the real world, you have to constantly invest in education, retooling, and use deductive reasoning skills. Otherwise, you are going to get phased out. Yeah. I mean, especially in Bill's trade. Bill just can't keep using codes from 1902. He's got to use all this stuff nowadays. And in my trade is just constantly training. I'll say this: my trade is every 5 years. I am spending a constant amount of money. The number one thing I spend money on is information. And I have to pay this. If I don't have them, how am I going to do things? I have to have information. And I just can't use the process, and I can't use the mentality and the tools of yesterday. Them days are over. They've been over. And that's what the problem with Greco-Roman wrestling. We're using tools, information, and process of a time of those vehicles aren't made anymore. Now, if you want to go restore something, go back and do that. So in my trade right now, I got guys trying to tell me in the United States, this is the way I do it. Yeah, if I was stuck in 1885 and built an 85 car, that's what we would do. Unfortunately, we have athletes in 2024. We have to train, and this is where people get it wrong. We don't train like it's 2024. We have to train like it's 2028 and 2032. And the problem in Greco-Roman, we have people have a mentality like, man, I just watched this shit we're doing. They did this. Yeah, they did that yesterday. We have to think forward. And so that's the problem we have right now, Greco-Roman. We have people stuck in eras, stuck in shit that they did. We see it in folk style. Guy comes to a camp, shows the shit that he did, and he was good. You see in coaching and all kinds of things. Oh, this guy was a great athlete. He comes in, shows the stuff they were great at. They don't train. They don't re-educate. Yeah. So right now, that's what we have going on. And I said, what do you see when that says, well, so and so did this and that and the other thing? We don't have people willing to re-educate, retool, invest. And when I say invest, I'm talking about money. You got to spend money.
Yeah. And we're finding that a lot too, as far as even on the side of where we're at, not even Greco.
Folk style, same thing. Look at folk style. Go watch $500 match. Man. Go watch folk style match from our day back in high school. Not go watch this. The folk style game is constantly evolving.
Oh yeah,
always.
Someone asked me recently. They're like, someone asked me like, Bill, could you hey, we should coach together. We'll do this folk style thing. And I'm like, listen, I've coached Greco now only for about 6 to 7 years. And I'm like, I don't feel like I'd be doing anyone in folk style a service by working with them. I'm out of it. Like I only, like my eyes are trained for that. I like study that. That's all I study. So I would be doing a disservice.
And there's something to be said for like a 9/16 wrench is a 9/16 wrench, right? In Bill's high cross is probably suffice to be taught to this day and all that kind of stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about getting athletes to a senior level of credibility is the problem. And so many people in the United States are stuck with shade tree mechanical work. Their buddy builds a deck on a weekend for a six-pack kind of people. And that's what they think Greco-Roman wrestling is right now. They're like, well, U15's doing good. We've always done good at U15s, U17s. Yeah. We're wrestling children from another country that aren't cutting weight. They have wrestled maybe 2 matches of their life. And we got Tulsa, Mr. World Champion coming down here cutting 30 pounds to wrestle 106. Yeah, we're going to kick their ass. It wouldn't matter what style wrestling it would be. We win their ass. You could take any not really high-level folk style athlete, teach them zero Greco-Roman wrestling, send them on the Pan Ams or U15 Worlds or even U17 Worlds and be like, hey, just don't grab the legs. And they'll do pretty good because our wrestlers at that time. And
we got kids retiring from Greco, though.
We think in the United States that we're like, oh, U15's doing good. We've always done good there. We've always done U15, U17. But juniors less. U23s, nope. Seniors.
That's why Keegan Bassett retired, because he said, nope, I accomplished it all. I'm good. I got what I needed.
Yeah, you know what's going on? College coaches, and he knows, and smart athletes know. Like Bassett, probably super highly intelligent athlete, knows he probably rolled.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
He's probably like, you know what? I really want to be an NCAA guy and a freestyle guy. And I know I'm going to have to take those hours of Greco now and put them in the freestyle and folk style. Yep. Yeah. I'm not going to be able to adverse because I'm not going to drop freestyle and folk style to put more hours in Greco to be a high level folk style. Greco guys, 18, 19, 25, and 20 years old.
Right.
So I'm not going to play that game. Only stupid people keep trying to play that game.
We did that with Liam at the same age. We were like, Greco's done. It's time to do
and we're
this,
fine with that. Like we're telling people straight out, like, hey, if you drop Greco to focus on whatever, because if you have a good coach in freestyle, he should be teaching you enough Greco Roman crossover ideas with 2-on-1. That should be suffice.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
it does. But your folk style coach should be helping with that stuff that you need and don't need. Because you start getting to a certain level. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like T-ball. It's like coach pitch to T-ball. You know what I'm saying? You got coach pitch Greco. No, you got coach pitch Greco. You got T-ball Greco. And now we're gonna have some like some little league Greco. And now we're talking like fast pitch steroid era Greco.
Yeah, 105 mile an hour.
Sammy Sosa baseball. That's the Greco. We're talking when they're cranking or blowing, killing people with the they hit the ball to kill a kid. They hit
steroid.
Not nowadays, these skinny little baseball players. That's the difference.
Yeah. No, I get it. I understand. That's why, like, even knowing that Liam isn't going to be good at your competing Greco, it's like it's still a basis of all wrestling. All wrestling.
Like your folk style freestyle coaches should be working on whatever they need from Greco anyways. I mean, and they're, say a 2-on-1 underhook or whatever, a throw, whatever you think a Greco thing would be in folk style. They should be doing that. He doesn't need Greco anymore. It ain't going to help him none. In fact, Greco's going to, if he went to a real Greco Roman wrestler, if Liam or any folk style athlete that doesn't train Greco in like a reasonable time frame or reasonable thing, came to our practice, two things are going to happen. Be completely useless to sit out, or 2 get hurt. Mm-hmm. They're going to get fucked up.
Yep.
You want to change?
We've been there.
Hey, let me change channels for 1 second. High school wrestling. Right?
Yeah.
Women's wrestling.
I
was at this thing the other night, and these parents are like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "Well, my daughter's Avery, blah blah." And they're like, "Oh, hey, I heard they're gonna change high school to freestyle wrestling." I'm like, "Yeah, we're still not competing." And they're like, "Really?" Well, no, it's just they shouldn't. I'm like, they shouldn't allow it. I'm like, "Really?" And
what? They shouldn't allow freestyle in high school.
Well, yeah, they said they might.
I know why you're saying it, but it's like, really? You don't? I mean,
well, here's what I'll give you 2 reasons why they shouldn't. I'll give you the rule. If they make high school wrestling freestyle, they should ban all privately trained freestyle athletes.
Okay.
Because they do it in gymnastics. I think they still have that rule in gymnastics. If you're a high school gymnast, you can't train privately. Could you imagine a full-time freestyle athlete coming in to wrestle a first-year wrestler in freestyle?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're not going to have coaches. I mean, there's not enough coaches that
the match will last 10 seconds. The last match 10 seconds, or somebody get mangled.
Right. Yeah. No, I get it. I totally get it.
Folk style is the best style of wrestling for public school. They should stay folk style.
Sure.
If you want to wrestle freestyle, quit high school wrestling.
Right. The liability. Right. It makes sense for the liability purposes.
Right.
Like you can't. I mean, my wife still cringes when we're watching Peyton, Kahle, all them, so they can't handle that. They can't.
Yeah.
Not in the United States. Not in the United States. They can't handle that.
Not right now. Well,
okay, so yeah, but go back on Peyton thing. It's just I think the biggest thing I want to talk about here is like he's a perfect example of an athlete that, and I say this a lot. One of my punchlines is he took a chance on himself. And when he took a chance on himself, he put his trust in his weightlifting coach, his dieting coach, a lot. Bill Kahle, Andy Bisick, and we're in there helping.
Right. Yeah, I don't forget Andy and those guys at NME.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so so with that said, is like the reason why Peyton has success is he's checking all the boxes, and he keeps checking all the boxes. He's not leaving boxes open.
He's asking, like, am I missing something? Like he's doing that. He's not crying like, I don't know what's happening to me. I feel like I'm losing all, and you're like,
yeah,
I've never heard that from him. He's just
no despair.
What do we need to do? What do we need to do?
Yeah.
And as a coach, I've said that too. Like, hey, Peyton lost. What did I miss? What did I miss?
Yeah.
And I think some coaches are kind of like, well, I didn't miss anything. He missed it, And I'm in my mind, I would think like, gosh, what do I need to do? What am I missing here?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think if we talk about the big, I mean, there's others I want to talk about in the podcast, but I want to keep it on Peyton. Is that is the fact that, the important part about the journey, no matter if you're in folk style, freestyle, Greco, or anything, is that you keep checking all the boxes, and your 100% list stays full, like, tough. And like I said, those hours a day, there's no negative hours,
Right.
So I think that's the biggest thing here. And the guy goes, well, here you got a guy that, that did what he's doing, and hopefully we're still obviously not done yet. It's the perfect example of an athlete. Say, is coachable. He's not falling off the wagon and doing stupid stuff. He stays relying on all of his coaching staffs, for all his life, and he keeps his life in check 24 hours a day. Like, just 24 hours a day are positive hours, right down to the last hour of sleep, and that's the secret of Peyton Jacobson.
So here's where I get tripped up on the doing all the right things, because there are guys who do all the right things and don't succeed. So I'm not a guy that says, oh, luck plays a lot of it, because these guys put a lot of work and time into what they do. Right. So it's not like they're just kind of like,
you have to have some genetics. I mean, you know what I mean?
Oh, like, for sure.
You got to have some genetics. You have to have some athletic ability,
But no, we're talking about guys that are all specimens, every guy that he wrestled is a specimen. Right. So you talk about all the right things and putting, your specific thing together, because that's what this is about.
Yeah.
Your training helped get him there, so it's a testament.
Coaching's
again. That's why it's about Peyton.
Yeah,
right. That's why. That's why Peyton.
Andy's one of the best at that level right now. Lucas certainly is one of the top guys at the age level right now. I mean, that's
where it. Why wouldn't you? So now I'm going to bring this into a bigger question then, Lucas, because I know that we just got done talking about how you pay the bills by doing transmissions. Bill, you're a carpenter, things like that. So what is stopping the conglomerate of guys that you guys, because you got Dominguez in Nebraska. You guys have a network of guys. Why aren't you trying to create something bigger and not even worrying about the Olympic Training Center, putting the program that you have together on a different scale, to grow that more, to make that our guys iffy, because now we talk about money. So I don't want to hear about money. I know about the money thing. How come you guys haven't banded together to try to create something like that?
Well, I think we have. I just think
those guys. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Bill.
I was gonna say we work with all those guys. Like Lucas and Zach are pretty close. I mean, I get along well with Zach, but Lucas and Zach have a good relationship. We have a friend in Alaska, this Wes Bockert, who really is kind of up and coming on with his guys in the Greco scene, because Alaska has a folk style season that ends in like early December. It's not even a factor. They're training. They don't even train folk style. They just train Greco and then compete at the folk style in their own like little school, and they have their own little wrestling school.
So it's a Alaska HPG,
kinda. And so we've done things back and forth. They've come down, done stuff with Lucas and I when we had some of those showcases. We've went up there and trained, and so we're trying to implement this and work collaboratively. So
there's ebbs and flows on everything, but I think right now we're kind of at a high point. There'll probably be a drop off, I'm guessing, in this next couple of years. Maybe, hopefully not. But the thing is like, it's hard. You're talking about a very obscure sport, And so people say they want to do something, and then you tell them what they need to do it. And then they're like, there's a lot of working, there's a lot of moving parts. Like, you got to be online. You got to be online. You got to be traveling internationally. You got to do all this stuff. There's only a certain amount of people that can make it all happen. Now, I could run all those. I could put all the posts in the world about, like, hey, if you love your kid, I always get them one-liners like, the best way to tell your kid you don't love them is some can't afford it, kind of thing, and stuff like that. But but it's just like, there are realities. That a lot of people think they can't do what we're doing. I mean, they can do it. They just think they can't. But it's hard. It's hard for people to change their world. As I said. Sure. And when I'm talking to athletes, I'll tell you what, I'm talking to these girls, these parents about high school wrestling. I'm just I know, and I'm like, man, they have no idea what they're just in a different world. And it's not even levels. It's just a different world. They're concerned about different things and different time frames, just different worlds. It's just you can't like say, okay, it was a transitional piece. It's just totally two different worlds. And when it comes to Greco, you're talking about taking an athlete and their family and pulling them into a world that, you know, there are a lot of people in gymnastics and polo and water polo. And you talk about all kinds of soccer, and you talk about all these other sports they're in this world. But people that are in the world of having their local paper, you know, talk about them and having pep rallies, and there's a whole nother world. And to get rid of that, I mean, God, that's it's not even Greco. It's just leaving the world that they're in to do a different world.
There's no glory for the parents.
It's undeniably right. It's difficult. It is.
Yeah.
As a parent to not go and be part of your community. You know what I mean? Like you're part of your community. That's not a bad thing to be part of your community.
Right. Yeah.
But you end up being you leave your community. And let's face it, sometimes when these kids do, their coaches are mad at them. Other people in the community are kind of mad at them. You have to have some thick skin, you know. There's people now who are finally saying, like, oh my gosh, it worked. You know, I totally doubted it. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. And that's here's what I'm gonna tell you. Peyton making Olympics was great.
Yeah.
But it maybe pushed the people on the fence to our side, but it didn't attract anybody new, because now what it is if I go full-time Greco, I have to make the Olympics. So the problem is it's kind of a problem, because before it was like go full-time Greco because you just love Greco.
So the bar's too high.
Well, the bar's too high. And the bar's just, it's like a dog that can't see past his field. It's like a young dog can't see too far. Like if you have a young
Are we that fucking lazy in this country? Is that what we're getting at here? Is that 100%. We don't
but here,
no drive?
Look at high school wrestling. You get to here in high school wrestling, you wrestle how many matches a year? 50, 60 matches a year. You wrestle 3 times a week. So you fuck up on Tuesday, you can redo it on Friday. It's the whole youth baseball. You play 100 million games. It's all about you know, competition and well, here's what it is. It's stimulus to accountability. I think I'm right now, but like, you know, for you being checked off the box, you're doing good. They're measuring success with they're measuring progression with success, and it's like it's like, you know, it's like a drug. It's like a drug. And so you take them to a world where they're not going to be exposed to constant competition, and they're not going to be exposed to all these people knowing how good they are, and they can't see their, you know, it's just, you know, if you can't stay in the shadows, and there's very few people that can handle being at trying. It is highly likely. It is more likely than not. It is almost guaranteed you will not succeed, right? Making Olympics, it's pretty tough. Pretty tough. Making a world team, pretty tough. Them are the measuring.
The NCAA starting lineup is tough, like 0.01%.
Yeah, I mean, so it was pretty tough. And so, but for Greco, there's no like, even if you win Fargo, that's like what, 2 people know about it in your hometown. I mean, really? Yeah, right. You know what Fargo is. You know what World Team Trials is at. So you could be the best in the United States. You're like, oh, that's cool. How do you do in high school? And they're like, high school? What? The best in the goddamn world. They're like, oh yeah, how do you do in high school? Their brains, there's this program. It's a different world. Yeah. It's like this. I told Bill this. You ever seen those videos and they're like, oh man, we discovered this tribe on some hidden island. They haven't seen any, you know what I'm saying? That they haven't seen any technology in their whole entire life. But they're killing, they're eating people or other animals, whatever. Yeah. You know, it's like, it's another world. They can't conceive what we're doing in this world. It's like going to the Amish community. It's different worlds and people. So we're trying to take somebody out of their world and put them in a totally different. It's not the Greco Roman wrestling. It's the lifestyle and perceived all the things that go with it in that lifestyle. And that's what it is. You know? So do you have a PR group that you guys work with to like put out the good word about Greco? Because Lucas, I tell you what, if I were a parent and I know you, so I know you well, but as far as just wanting to get my kid into Greco, like you don't see anybody putting it out there. You know what I'm saying? Like we do our thing here, and you see once in a while you'll see something put out there, you know, by whoever. Flo puts something out there, you know, once every 3 months. Who is because again, we're talking about money. PR takes money, and then putting stuff out there takes money. What is out there that's trying to gravitate more, not even more people, but just the right people towards Greco? Or is it just throw some bait out and hang out and wait? You know what I'm saying? Like,
to get the numbers so we are up there? Is it you're talking about the parents, again, and the parents are
well
a factor in everything you do.
I mean, here's a big factor is that is many coaches are pretty selfish with their athletes. And when you see an athlete that has some potential in like Greco, you have to be selfless enough to say, you know where you belong,
Yep.
And one of my good friends who was my roommate in college, he's the head coach at McGuanago, John Wersbecki. He went to Peyton's little banquet, and it kind of to support me, but because he's a local guy too, and he's a good coach, he's just a good dude,
Yeah.
He's like, Bill, I didn't get it. He's like, I didn't get it. I didn't understand why you were doing this, And I'm like, I tried getting 2 or 3 of your athletes, and I know you did not want them to leave, but they would have been better off if they would have been with me on that path. You know what I mean? Like they were Greco guys. They were really Greco guys, but they're good athletes, and they're going to succeed in the direction they're going. But some of the coaches, it's hard to give up your athletes. It really is. I understand it.
Sure.
But there's going to be a time where you got to be able to say, like, man, where I know you'd be best and you can make an Olympic team, go over by those guys, man. And until that happens, gosh, you'd have to throw money on it because you need money for PR.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have anyone. We don't have anyone selflessly giving them their time to this because where are you going to get money? How are you going to fund yourself? And
right. I get it. And at the same point though, too, it's just it's one of those things where a lot of times you can't tell what Greco wants though. You know what I'm saying? Like if you don't want to rush into it, but at the same point though, too, you need more to prove a point. You need more to be able to put the numbers out there to be able to prove a point. So
what do you mean?
Well, I mean, you guys, okay. For
like
you example,
like more Peyton Jacobson?
Yes.
Okay, what's an easy one to answer right there? Everybody else in the world. So you sit there and say, Ferrari, Ford goes, how are we gonna be Ferrari? You watch that movie. You got to reinvent the wheel, so we don't reinvent the wheel at home. What we do is we go overseas and think what they're doing, bring it here, reinvent our wheel. So it's super simple to prove. Everybody else in the world is way better than us, and we're just copying what they're doing. Gymnastics is best in the world, and we're copying what they're doing. So it's like, how do you solve a problem? I call their guys in the transmission trade, spend lots of money to join these clubs, to sit there, hey, I got this problem. How did you fix it? I might try fixing it myself, but eventually end up calling people, and they tell me how they fix it, and they show me and all that. So in Greco, that's what we did. And so guys, so prove me your system works. Well, I can prove to you what we are doing doesn't work. So number one, I can prove inequivocally what we're doing in Nazis does not work whatsoever. You can point to 4 jobs that worked. If I was in the transmission trade and I can point to 4 jobs that worked over the last 100 years, or 10 guys that made medals in the last 100 years, I'd be out of business. Wouldn't that be kind of a bad? That would be. I mean, if it was freestyle, they'd be killing people. They'd be firing people left and right. In my transmission shop, if I only had 10 successful jobs out of the last 100 years, it wouldn't be so successful. So it's proven that our system isn't working. It's out of date. So that's one. 2 is we just look at everybody else's system in the world. What are they doing? They're studying kids in Greco, super, super young, and all they ever do is Greco, period. And there's a lot of things, working parts with gymnastics and blah, 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 blah. But with that said, how much they're competing and all that kind of crap. But simple as said, the best guys in the world and everybody else in the world is doing what we're doing. They're doing it more than we are. They're doing it. They're bringing them in at 10 years old, living in schools where they don't see their parents maybe 4 times a year. There's a lot more crazier stuff they're doing than we're doing. We're doing a real Americanized version, starting them at 15, bringing them full time. I'm telling them I need them at 14, but I know in the United States it's probably not safe to do that. So we better bring them in at 16 when they got driver's licenses. It's more actual real world doable,
Yeah. Well, it's a point to be said though too, that you said that once they get their driver's license, you really find out who wants it bad enough too.
It's a waste of time. Why bring a 14-year-old that can't see past his nose? You might as well bring him at 16.
Yeah, and figure out if he wants it.
Obviously, we're not gonna miss that much development time there. Not in the United States. No, overseas, maybe whatever.
Is there what's coming up in the future?
I'm on the other side where I'm like, gosh, we got to get him in earlier. But I do understand, there's a lot of logistics in the age level and how do you bring them over, But I'm always like, man, if we could just keep getting them earlier and
early be better. It's just that it's not what the gamble.
And I think that balance would work great because, like I said, Bill, with you with the Ringers program, over there where you can get a hold of someone early enough and not make them specialize, but at least kind of foster that.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem.
Go
What's
over
another thing,
here.
Well, here's another thing. We don't want to bring a guy into Greco that doesn't want to do Greco. You know, how many kids like, oh, I want a puppy. Oh, I want a cat. Oh, whatever.
Right.
It's, so it's just Cruz who did Greco 4 times, love Greco. No, we need a guy who's been doing freestyle, folk style Greco for quite a bit of time, competing at a real mental level, and then decide. And it's usually people 15, 14 years old. They've kind of done all 3 styles, been training nationally, doing that kind of dual stuff. And it's like, okay, who's the guy who really likes Greco? And I don't care how good they are. It's the person that loves it. Then we can work from there. But with that said it's the United States. We have Walmart's, fast food, and China buffets. So we got to make sure we pick our guys right.
I want everything now. I want it now. Right now. I want to win now. I want a medal now. I want a ribbon now. Whatever I want now. Yeah. So, what's coming up in the future? You got anything you want to add here? We'll wrap things up.
I just got a camp coming next week. That's it. Like a small camp. Yeah. A little small camp, little intermittent camp for HPG program. Camp
is when.
Yeah, and then guys leave from here. We have the cheese. We're doing that big cheese thing. A couple guys doing the big cheese.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, on Sunday. Then you go from there up to the NMU camp. Come back from NMU camp, and then we have a little holiday with 4th of July, and then we get ready for Fargo.
Is that camp coming up open to the public? Anybody can show up to that?
Yeah, that camp we have coming up next week. We have a camp coming up Thursday, Friday, Saturday. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, we have a camp coming. They can jump on in there. It's pretty reasonable price. And then we have Fargo, the Olympics. We have Colton Weiler on the world team for cadets.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
I think AWA or whatever he wrestles for folk style over there. He comes to our Greco program.
Yep.
And then nobody made the junior teams, first time in a long time. But we had a good showing. So yeah.
What do you got going on, Bill? Same stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Olympics. Just kind of keeping in touch with Peyton and kind of worried. Not worried, but like always concerned about like, hey, how's his mental game?
Oh yeah, for sure.
How's that going? How's your stability? You know what I mean? And because I know Andy's got a good grip up on him at NMU, and then he's going to be at the Olympic Training Center for a while. He's got a pretty busy schedule, but
let him know we want to get him on the show because we want to hear that story of that. We want to hear I decided to shut off everything and just go Greco. So we want to elaborate on that more. And now we have a dude. We have a dude, and plus Benji. We had Pecan, but now we got Peyton. Making the Olympic team, things like that. So. I think it's important to get him out there. So Bill, you tell him we got to get him on. I'll see if I can message him too out there. And
he would have, but like I said, today he was traveling to
he's gone. The
training center today. So
whenever he's available, dude. He's got the Olympics to worry about. That's coming up first. I don't try to get in the guys' heads with that.
He's right there. He's right there with the competition. It's not like, hey, we qualified. Hey, this is great. It's like, It's like, okay, this is one step on the ladder. I'm not doing this for nothing. We've always said, we've always said you can talk to him too. Since he was like 9 or 10, I've said you're gonna be an Olympian. You're gonna be Olympian. And I tell that to a lot of guys, but Peyton believed it.
Yeah.
He fucking believed it,
And you can see those kids when that light bulb goes off, you're like, okay, I'm doing this, and then they just stick with it totally.
Yeah. You're gonna win world medals. You're gonna be an Olympic champ. You tell, and I guarantee there's minimal high school coaches that say you're going to be an Olympian. I know that.
Right.
They're always like, yeah, there's a chance.
Yeah.
And it's not knocking them. It's just not in their goal progression,
So we're gonna definitely have a watch party when it's going down and watch here. We'll even put something live up when Peyton's up wrestling and stuff.
I'm sure they'll show Luke and I in the stands. Luke wants me to like shave my head and take my shirt off, but I'm not going to do that.
That's what he should do.
I won't.
He should put the combat star on his chest when he takes his shirt off, and then have his head shaved and stuff. That'd be great.
He's got that tattooed on his chest, so he's already there.
Oh,
this is gonna be awesome. All right, well, hey, dude, I appreciate you guys joining me again. Lucas, as always, fourth, fifth time I think now. I think it's somewhere around there.
He's a veteran for sure.
You've got a record going so far, so we gotta obviously we'll always have something Greco going. So if Lucas goes somewhere, we'll call Bill, and then after that we'll start calling other guys. But you're the dude. You're the Greco dude. Shit what's going on, and you and Bill creating Olympic athletes. Man. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up.
There's a whole team. You just got a slice of the pie here.
Yeah, well, and it's a great slice of the pie because it's exciting. It's good to hear about someone coming from the get-go and making it all the way through. So I'm going to throw in the intro. I'm going to talk to you guys for a second, Luke, kind of like we always do at the end here. To 30, 45 seconds here quick, and then we'll be back. But everybody, thank you for joining us again. Whoever listened, I appreciate it. It's been a long time. I don't know if people are like, does this show exist anymore? It does. So we're back with Bill and Lucas, and then want to put this out here, you guys. A little Spartan Blood pre-workout from Anabolic Army. Yeah, you should put some of that down your throat. One scoop though, easy killers. Otherwise, we don't need people, taking the stuff the wrong way. One scoop is fine, but that's the new flavor that's out. So good stuff. Again, guys, thanks for joining. We'll talk to you in just a second, but this has been the Vision Quest podcast. Peace.